Hello and welcome to lesson 5.1. Today we're going to look at comparing and ordering fractions. So to start out with, let's look at example 1. It says to graph and compare the fractions in each pair. So to begin with, looking at part A, we have 9/11ths and 6/11ths. So to graph these, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a number line. So if I create a number line that looks something like this, notice we start out at 0. And each tick mark is going to represent 1/11th. So I have 1/11th, 2/11ths, 3/11ths, 4/11ths, and so on, all the way up until I get to this tick mark here, which is 11/11ths or 1. So if I go and I graph 9/11ths, 9/11ths is going to fall right here, and 6/11ths is going to fall right here. So I can see clearly that 6/11ths is less than 9/11ths. So to compare these, I'm just going to write that 6/11ths is less than 9/11ths. And then I'm done with this set. Now for part B, I have a -1/2 and a -1/10. So I have two negative numbers, which is great. I can handle that. But my problem is I have two numbers that are not really in like terms. So what I need to do is I need to get them with a common denominator. So in this case, I know that 2 will go into 10 if I multiply 2 by 5. I'm also going to have to multiply my numerator by 5. So really what I'm going to be comparing is a -5/10 and a -1/10. So now, because I have that common denominator, I have like terms that I can go ahead and compare. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start out by drawing a number line. So here I've created my number line, and because I'm dealing with two negative numbers, I'm going to go from a -1, which is -10/10, all the way up to 0. So I'm going to go ahead and plot a -5/10. So a -5/10 is going to fall right here, and a -1/10 is going to fall right here closer to 0. So based upon this, I can see that -5/10 is farther to the left, which means it's smaller than my -1/10. So if I want to go ahead and compare these, I'm going to say that -5/10, which was really this -1/2, is less than a -1/10. And this is my final answer. For example 2, I would like you to try to do this on your own real quick, and then I'll work through the whole thing with you. I'm going to go ahead and draw a number line while you are working this out. So for part A, it tells me to graph 4/9 and 2/9. So on this big number line here, I have 4/9 and 2/9. So to compare these, I can see that 2/9 is farther to the left than 4/9. So I would say that 2/9 is less than 4/9. For part B, I'm going to do the same thing. I have a -4 and a -2/9. So -4/9 falls right here. -2/9 falls right there. So I can see that -4/9 is farther to the left or is less than a -2/9. And likewise, if I look at a -4/9 and a +2/9, here is a -4/9, here is a +2/9. Now you don't have to graph that if you know that your negatives are less than your positives. I could have just done that kind of through logic. Otherwise, if we graph it, you can see where the yellow arrows are, and I can see that -4/9 is really less than a +2/9. So for example 3, it says to use a common denominator to compare fractions with unlike denominators. So here we're given the problem. It says the math team won 5/8 of its competitions, and the debate team won 7/10 of its competitions. Which team won the greater fraction of competitions? So I am going to be looking at 7/10 and 5/8. So I need to get a common denominator. And you can either go ahead and multiply these two together, or we can list out what we call the least common multiples. In least common multiples, if I look at my denominators, I have a denominator of 10. So my least common multiples, of course, are going to be, I have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, and we'll stop right there. Then I'm going to do the same thing with my 8. The least common multiple of 8 would be 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, and 48. But what I notice right away is that both 10 and 8 have a multiple of 40, and this is the first multiple that they both share. So 40 is really going to be our least common multiple. So what that means is if I'm going to rewrite this, I'm going to make my denominators both a 40, and I had to multiply 10 by 4 to get to 40, which means I also have to multiply the 7 by 4. So 7 times 4 is 28. To get to 40, I have to multiply 8 by 5, which also means I have to multiply that numerator by 5. 5 times 5 is 25. Now, because both of these are positive numbers, I'm going to go and look at the denominators, and I'm going to see that 28 is actually bigger than 25, which tells me that 28 40ths is greater than 25 40ths, and this would be our final answer. For example 5, we're going to compare the two fractions that are given, and you're either going to use the greater than symbol, the less than symbol, or the equal to symbol. So just like in the previous examples, we're going to start out by getting the least common multiples for the denominator. So for 49, I have 14 and 6. So multiples of 14 are going to be 14, 28, 42, 56, and multiples for 6 will be 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, and 42. So based on this, we can see that 42 is going to be a least common multiple for both. So I'm going to rewrite my denominators with a denominator of 42. So I had to multiply 14 by 3, which means I also have to multiply the 7 by 3. So I have 21. And then I multiply 6 by 7, which means I also multiply 3 by 7. So I end up with 21 42. So that tells me that these two fractions are actually equal to one another. Please pause the video and try the rest of these on your own. For number 50, my least common multiple is going to be 9. Both of these are negative, so I'm going to leave the first fraction as a negative 7/9. And for the second fraction, I multiplied my denominator by 3. So I also multiplied the numerator by 3, which gives me negative 6. Now because these two numbers are negative, the smaller number then will actually be larger. So that means that my negative 6/9 is actually going to be greater than the negative 7/9. For 52, both 24 and 26 have the number 24 in common. So I will have to multiply 6 by 4 and 5 by 4. So I have a negative 19 24ths and a negative 20 24ths. Because both numbers are negative, again, I'm looking for the smaller numerator, which is a negative 19. So negative 19 24ths is greater than a negative 20 24ths. For my next problem, I am looking at 11 and 55. Their least common multiple will be 11 and 5, which is going to be 55. So I multiplied 11 by 5 to get to 55, which means I also multiply the top by 5, which will give me 50. I multiply 5 by 11, which also means I multiply 4 by 11, or 44. And I can see that 50 55ths is greater than 44 55ths. For the next one, both of these denominators have a multiple of 4. So I'm going to multiply 2 by 2 to get 4, and I'll multiply my numerator by 2 to get 4. So I end up with 2 fourths and 2 fourths, and these two will then be equal. Now for 56 here, I'm just going to refresh your memory that my denominator is really 1 on that -3. So I can see that I have 1 and 36. The least common multiple will be 36. So I'm going to multiply 3 by 36. And this is going to give me a -108. And then I have a -1236. And again, my smaller negative is actually going to be bigger. So this tells me that -108 over 36 is going to be less than a -12 over 36. For example 6, I want to put all of these in order. Now again, I have fractions and whole numbers. My whole number is really over a +1. So I'm going to want to find the least common multiple for all of these. So when I look at just my denominators, I have a denominator of 2, a denominator of 4, a denominator of 1, which I'm not going to write that one down because I can make that turn into anything, and a denominator of 5. So for the 2's, I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, and 20. For 4, we have 4, 8, 12, 16, and 20. And for 5, I have 5, 10, 15, and 20. Now notice all of these have a multiple of 20. So that means I'm going to rewrite all these fractions with denominators of 20. So I'm going to have a negative 1/2. I multiplied the 2 by 10 to get 20. So that means I also multiply the numerator by 10. So I end up with a -10/20. I multiplied 4 by 5 to get 20. So I multiply 3 by 5, which means I have 15/20. Then I have a -20/20. And to get to 20 on this denominator of 5, I multiplied by 4. So I also multiply that numerator by 4, which would give me 8/20. So now I'm going to write them from least to greatest as it says. And my least, or my smallest number, is actually going to be my largest negative numerator. So I have -20/20. Then I'm going to have my -10/20. That gets me out of the negative range. Now I'm going to go in the positive numbers. So that gives me 8/20 and 15/20. So then the last thing I have to do is I just have to put the corresponding fractions with each in the correct order. So to do that, -20/20, that really came from -1. So this is less than. Then a -10/20 was really my -1/2. And that's less than. My 8/20 actually came from my +2/5. And that is going to be less than my +3/4. So this right here is ordering my fractions from least to greatest. Please take a quick second to pause the video and try this one on your own. For part A, my common denominator, or least common multiple, is going to be 12. So I multiplied 3 by 4, which means I also multiplied 2 by 4, so I have 8/12, 2 6, 12/12, and 5/12. Because all of these are positive, I can just go ahead and write them in order with my smallest fraction coming first because I do want least to greatest. So that gives me 2/6. Oops. That should be 2/12. So I have, so this really gives me 2/12. Then I have 5/12, 8/12, and 12/12. So when I go back and put them back in the order based on the numbers that I was given originally, 2/12 is really 1/6. This is less than 5/12, which was given to me. And 5/12 is less than 8/12, which is really 2/3. And 2/3 is less than 12/12, which is really 1. So this right here is my final answer. For part B, my least common multiple of 10, 5, 1, 2, and 12 is going to be 60. So I'm going to have a negative. I'm going to multiply this by 6, so negative 18/60. This I had to multiply by 12, so now I have 12/60. I have a negative 60/60. I have 30/60. And I have a negative 35/60. So if I rearrange these, my largest negative is my negative 60/60. Then I have a negative 35/60. So that gets rid of these two. Then we have a negative 18/60. And now I'm into my positives, which are 12/60. And 30/60. So I'm just going to rewrite these in corresponding terms. So I have a negative 1, which is less than 35/60, or a negative 7/12, which is less than 18/60, which was a negative 3/10, which is less than 12/60, which is 1/5. And this is less than 30/60, which is 1/2. So this here is my final answer. Please let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, I will see you in class. Have a great day.